Hello and welcome to today's holiday special episode of the Aviators South Africa, Episode 3. My name is Kabir and I'm the host on the show with Warwick. Today on the show we'll be joined by our fellow aviation enthusiasts, Thomas and Aviation.
Today on the show we'll be talking about aviation safety and the risk of air versus ground travel. We hope that you enjoyed this holiday special episode and make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow's episode on the future of supersonic air travel.
So, aviation safety. Is it safer than ground travel? Well, we've all seen the statistics that air travel is the safest form of travel. But why is this, and why is it so unfairly judged? Well, we first have to look at the fact that there are so many more precautions in air travel than any other form of transportation in the world.
That is a good point, Tom, because in your car you do not have to have your bag stored away not on one of the seats or something of the sort. I mean, there is not somebody sitting at the traffic lights all day directing you if you can drive or not and telling you what road to go on, like there is at an airport.
That is very true, Devarshan, but you also have to consider whether it is fairly judged. As an example, the pilot in a plane cannot be on the phone when the pilot is controlling or flying the plane, whereas in a car it's not recommended to be on the phone. But people do it, and it is allowed in that instance. So instantly, that is just one area that an aircraft is already much safer than a car or than a train, for example. And there are many of these areas in which some things are allowed in cars or other forms of transport, but not on aircraft. Now, one may argue that an aircraft is far harder to fly than a car, than to drive a car.
But although that's true in a car, you have to be so experienced to operate or drive it. Same as in an aeroplane, you have to be so much more experienced to operate it. But once you've got your license, technically you're at the same stage, in the way that you're both able to operate the two vehicles, but at different levels. So you should both be able to do the same things, like be on a phone. Admittedly, that is not a great example because it can interfere with radio signals in an aircraft and not in a car. But there are many other examples of the same category.
Something else that I do think that we need to add into this section, into this episode, is that while Warwick and Devarshan and Tom, we were all talking about fairly judged. But the truth is, we need to look at aviation in the media to understand why we are all saying aviation is not safe. And that aviation is not as safe as driving in a car or going in a train or going in a boat. And this is because of how unfairly judged aviation has been throughout the media. When we see several car crashes, head-on collisions on the highway, the first thing that the news covers is not that. Maybe some local news will cover it because it's local. When we have an aircraft, like an example when British Airways Comair's aircraft had a landing gear failure, or when FlySafe's aircraft had a depressurization, the whole world hears about that, and everyone hears about that immediately. And so it's not like a car where we've had 12 people die in KwaZulu-Natal. Nobody hears that immediately. But when nobody has died in an aircraft that has safely landed on the ground, we all immediately hear it. And so it's also about how the media has portrayed aviation and air travel. And so we have to be very mindful when watching the news, when consuming news, that actually make sure what we're consuming is not over-exaggerated. And so that's also a very big part of why we are in this position. Why do we need to justify when the statistics are all showing that aviation is actually one of the safest methods of transport?
Well, as a conclusion, there are many factors that could differ on whether they have judged this properly and came up with a correct outcome.
We'll be talking about this more in depth in an episode later in 2021, so stay tuned for that and make sure you do not miss the next 11 holiday special episodes coming up.
We hope that you have enjoyed this holiday special episode. Make sure to stay tuned for the rest of the year's videos and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed these videos. Stay home, stay safe, and happy flying.